Just minutes before the 8 p.m. Eastern Time deadline on Tuesday, U.S. time was drawing close, the U.S. president has announced a 2-week suspension of planned military strikes against Iran. Now, the move follows discussions with Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and military chief Asim Munir, who requested a pause. Remember, the ceasefire is conditional on Iran fully and safely reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Donald Trump described it as a double-sided ceasefire, emphasizing that most past points of contention have been settled and the pause allows time to finalize a long-term peace agreement in West Asia. Now, this also comes after the U.S. president said that if negotiations fail before his 8 p.m. deadline, strikes could still go ahead. He warned Iran could face an attack like they have not seen, while leaving a narrow window if diplomacy shows progress. Let's pull up the full statement of the U.S. President Donald Trump, what he posted on Truth Social just minutes before that 8 p.m. deadline lapsed. And this is exactly what he says in his statement on Truth Social. I quote, "Based on conversations with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Field Marshal Asim Munir of Pakistan, and wherein they requested that I hold off the destructive force being sent tonight to Iran, and subject to the Islamic Republic of Iran agreeing to the complete, immediate and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz, I agree to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. This will be a double-sided ceasefire. The reason for doing so is that we have already met and exceeded all military objectives and are very far along with a definitive agreement concerning long-term peace with Iran and peace in the Middle East. We receive a full 10-point proposal from Iran and believe it is a workable basis on which to negotiate. Almost all of the various points of past contention have been agreed to between the United States and Iran, but a 2-week period will allow the agreement to be finalized and consummated. On behalf of the United States of America as President and also representing the countries of the Middle East, it is an honor to have this long-term problem close to resolution. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump," unquote. That's the exact statement coming from the U.S. President just minutes before that 8 p.m. deadline lapsed. Remember, just hours before that 8 p.m. deadline and before this post, the U.S. President had also said that there would be mass-scale destruction of civilization in Iran. It appears like rising diplomatic activity around the Gulf do signal a possible pause in tensions, with back-channel coordination and conditional assurances shaping the next steps. Iran's Foreign Minister Sayyid Abbas Araghchi has said Iran had conveyed on behalf of its Supreme National Security Council appreciation to Shehbaz Sharif and Asim Munir for efforts to de-escalate the conflict. He indicated that Iran was responding to a request from Pakistan's leadership and parallel outreach from the United States for talks based on a proposed framework. Araghchi also stated that if attacks on Iran were halted, Iranian armed forces would stop their defensive operations. Abbas Araghchi added that Iran was willing to facilitate limited, coordinated safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz for this 2-week period, subject to its military's approval. Now, the statement suggested a conditional de-escalation window linking cessation of hostilities to reciprocal restraint and opening the door for negotiations. It's important to note at this point what that 10-point proposal really looks like and what could potentially be included in that 10-point proposal that the U.S. President said looks like a workable solution. All right, let's take the story forward. We have two special guests joining us this morning. Major General V.K. Datta, defense and geopolitics expert. And we also have Sarwant Singh, SIS JNU New Delhi, joining us this morning. Let's go first to General V.K. Datta. General Datta, what could potentially be in that 10-point agenda that potentially the U.S. is saying it is okay to work with?
Yeah. See, the thing is that almost after 40 days of this conflict, ultimately, United States has to a proposal given by Iran of the 10-point agenda for stopping this conflict. Now, if you talk about the 10 points, they have reiterated all the issues which they had flagged earlier. That was to tell the Americans and the Israelis that compensate for the damage done to Iran, point one, permanent ceasefire so that there's no further hostilities in this region, pullback of the US military bases and military personnel from the Middle East, of course, opening of the Hormuz, and continuing with the limited enrichment of uranium for civilian purposes, and of course, the agreement by Iran that they will not pursue a nuclear weapons grade uh, agenda. So ultimately, if you talk about these 10 points, and which Donald Trump has also said that they are workable, now who's won this war? What has the Americans gained and what have the Iranians lost? Iran has also won, and Donald Trump can claim a victory on his own that, see, I scared the Iranians that I'll wipe the civilization off. And they ultimately agreed to a ceasefire 8 hours before the deadline.
All
So
right.
now the thing is that will they be able to fulfill the 10 points as asked by Iran, or they may not, and they may be stuck on certain issues during the further negotiations in this coming 2 weeks. But in the coming 2 weeks, both Iran, Israel, and US will try to replenish their spent fuel, I'll say, in other words.
Okay.
All the arsenal which they have so far depleted, they'll try to replenish that and wait for the next round. But if you ultimately think, what have they achieved? What was the objective of the Americans to start this war, or for Israel that matter? Regime change did not happen. Nuclear program not capped. It's still a question mark. The Iranians, even 5, 10 years back, we were hearing that they are just one screwdriver away from a nuclear device. You mean to say that over the 10 years they're not been able to turn the screwdriver? Anyway, that's a question mark. So ultimately, now this ceasefire also includes Lebanon, issues with Hezbollah, and all other issues in the region which they have been flagged earlier, and maybe the issue of Palestine. So now let's see whether the Americans agree to all these points and the Israelis abide by that, and whether there'll be permanent ceasefire. They have agreed now for opening of the Straits of Hormuz, and of course under the control of the IRGC, and it'll be a controlled activity through these states. Uh, because of this, you see the international prices have dropped of the crude oil, as we see in the market today. Uh, so now, whether it was Trump the taco or whether Iran has won, and what has Israel and America gained finally?
All right,
Over to
of
you.
course. Hold your thought there, General Datta. We will come back to you. Professor Swaran Singh, I want to bring you into this conversation. I think, it was till yesterday evening, at least India time, the question really was about brinkmanship. Who's going to blink first? Is it going to be US? Is it going to be Iran? Is it fair to assume at this point that US has gone ahead and blinked?
Absolutely. I think it was on anticipated lines. We have witnessed in case of tariffs where he's been repeatedly either putting pause or giving extension to countries like China. Similarly, here again, when it came to Strait of Hormuz, he had first given 48 hours ultimatum, then he extended it to 6th or 7th of April. And it was expected that if Iran stands firm to call the bluff, then it is very likely that President Trump will be looking for a face saving. Though attacks continued, and attacks may not come to an end even after this ceasefire, because ceasefire violations are normally possible. But yes, he has, instead of saying extension, he has said it's a double-sided ceasefire from both sides for a fortnight, which apparently is less than what Pakistan was proposing for 45 days ceasefire and then negotiations. He has also asked for Strait of Hormuz to be freed, which has not taken effect as of now because, as the general said, it's still happening technically under the supervision of Iranian armed forces, who will be selecting as to how, who, and when that ships could cross this region. So it was expected that President Trump will be looking at some kind of a pause or ceasefire, but I want to underline that this may not mean end of attacks completely because most of the ceasefires do have violations. We have noticed that in case of Gaza also, where Israel and Hamas had agreed to a ceasefire in October last year, more than 700 Palestinians have died despite that ceasefire under various Israeli attacks. Israel's response to the ceasefire is also going to be interesting because Israel is not participating in the ceasefire. So whether Israel will also follow this diktat and not attack for next 2 weeks, or is it going to continue attacking Iran? Because despite all the ultimatums, Israel has never stopped attacking Iran, and they believe that the decimation of Iran is the only way they can feel secure. So Iranian response to the ceasefire also is interesting. They are not really agreeing to the terms of ceasefire as far as America is proposing. They have put their own 10-point proposal, which puts back the most of the demands that Iran has had so far. Though now the language has changed, and Trump is saying the same demands are now a workable proposal for negotiations. So definitely, given the opposition that President Trump was facing within his NATO allies, perhaps within his team, his army chief had refused to agree to put boots on the ground and had to leave. Likewise, Arab allies also have been, at least publicly, very, very reticent in not supporting openly attacks. Though we understand privately they were perhaps egging President Trump to destroy Iran so that the threat of Iran is no longer there for them. So I think fundamentally Iran has withstood the enormous amount of destruction. It was
But
already
who's going to pay
facing.
for that destruction? And I think that is something which is going to be absolutely critical in that 10-point proposal, because this is something Iran has been harping on itself, that somebody has to pay for all the war damages, and that somebody must be US and its allies. But in addition to that, I think one of the central factors which emerge right now, General Datta, let me bring your view into this, is the Strait of Hormuz. And of course, the Strait of Hormuz was a free passage until before the 28th of February. Now, through this 1 month plus of aggression, about 40 days of aggression, has the US handed over the rights of the Strait of Hormuz to Iran?
Yeah, it's a critical question. Before this war started, it was a free passage as per international maritime laws.
And now Iran is also saying it's going to charge as much as $2 million per ship that passes through the Strait of Hormuz. So technically, the
Yeah.
Strait of Hormuz has now been handed over to Iran by none other than US President Donald Trump.
Yeah, now that is what will emerge as we see this thing unfolding. Russians have also supported that the rights of Strait of Hormuz are with Iran. And Iran has said that whatever it levies on the passage of ships in the straits will be shared between Oman and Iran. Now, finally, we'll see whether what emerges, what is the role of the United Nations in this entire episode subsequently after the ceasefire really takes effect, because we must bear in mind that decentralized command and control of the Iran military for carrying out retaliation against the West or in the neighborhood or Israel, it may happen that somebody or the other may still be firing missiles on each other in the coming few hours or so. But then finally, I think sense will
Missiles are
prevail
already
and
flying in the air from what we are
yeah,
picking up,
yeah.
General Datta. We are getting visuals, in fact, of missiles flying in the air over UAE, over skies of Kuwait. So it seems that Iran hasn't exactly stopped attacking US allies in the region just as yet, despite the talks of the ceasefire.
Yeah, I told you the reason, because see what's happened that when a leadership has taken a call, by the time it trickles down to the ground operatives and the people who are already deployed, where the missiles were already put on the launches and you have to just press a button. Now that man on the ground is stuck with a problem. What to do with the missile? Shall I dismantle it, take it back home, or I get rid of it and I fire it? So he fires it. So the thing is that till the time that the weapon systems which are deployed finally for launch, they will be launched. And then subsequently, of course, orders will come for no further launching of any hostile missiles or drones from the Iranian side, unless there is a retaliation from Israel or anybody else in the neighborhood. This will keep on happening. But now, as far as the Strait of Hormuz are concerned, that's your question. Yes, the status quo has changed. The status of the states now lies in a different domain, where it has already been, as I mentioned, emphasized by the Russians that it belongs to Iran, and Iran is willing to share it with Oman, because south of the state is Oman and north is Iran. Status quo has changed. And finally, what is the amount of the levy which they will charge for the ships to pass through, whether it will be applicable to all ships, whether it be exempt for the friendly countries, that time will tell. But definitely the status quo has changed. How do you?
Status quo on the Strait of Hormuz has changed, and the status quo on the U.S. president's presidency may also change. We will bring that up. But for those who are joining into this broadcast right now, what we know for now is that the U.S. president has gone ahead and posted on Truth Social that there is a 2-week cessation of hostilities, what he calls a ceasefire. Iran has also said that it will comply with the ceasefire as long as there is no further strikes by the United States.